Welcome to the first ever Presidential Party podcast. I want to thank everybody for showing up here today, and this is going to be a monthly seminar that we have with all our presidential presidents. I guess you could say they're
all of our presidents.
All our presidents. And I'm your host, Jim Amato, and our moderator has forgotten his name. He's Chris Tomlin.
You got to tell me if I'm saying my name or if you're saying my name.
Oh, no, I'm going to go around and have everybody say their name so we can get that on there. So I'm your host, Jim Amato, and our moderator,
Christopher Tomlin.
And we'll go in around the horn and have all the presidents introduce themselves, starting with the student government president.
Hi, I'm Emily Put, and I'm the student body president.
I'm Eric Mead. I'm the president of the class of 2022.
Hi, I'm Melissa Gillis. I'm the president of the class of 2023.
Hi, I'm Amy Harum. I'm the president of the class of 2024.
I'm Madison Hart, and I'm the class president of 2025.
And that is your esteemed panel for Woodland. Each month we're going to have a different topic to cover, and this month's topic is citizenship. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator to get us started.
All right, so gang, welcome to the podcast. So the idea behind this was that as the elected leaders of the building, of your individual classes, where to begin with this, and the best spot to begin with is citizenship. Because the very act of you having your positions is a great example of citizenship. So if you want to go around the room and let's begin. What does citizenship mean to you, and does it still have a role in the 21st century? Let's start with something nice and easy. So who would like to begin there?
I'll go.
Right.
Citizenship, what it means to me.
Yeah, and does it have a role in the 21st century?
This is actually a great topic because I was just covering this in civics 2 blocks ago. So citizenship, as we discussed in class, is the by birth or by choice owing allegiance to a nation. And all it basically means is you abide by the laws, you do all of your civic duties, voting, jury duty, stuff like that. And I think it still holds a role in the 20th century because, I mean, obviously we all live in countries, so it's like a sense of belonging, pretty much.
All right, sense of belonging. I like that. How about the rest of you? Do you guys have different definitions, or?
No, I agree with Eric. I think that's the definition. But when it comes to the 21st century, if it still plays a role, I think as people are becoming more aware of the past and the things that are happening now, we're starting to realize whether or not we want to pledge allegiance to a country. People have started sitting for the for the Pledge of Allegiance and that sort of situation. So I think now, that definition is kind of thinning out. It's becoming less and less the definition that Eric was talking about.
All right, how about the rest of you?
I think there's a difference between citizenship and patriotism. I think you can still be a citizen and maybe not support what your country is doing or representatives of your country are doing. I think they're separate. I think citizenship is more of a social responsibility to serve your country, whether it be military draft or paying taxes, jury duty, just giving back in some way to the country that's your home. And then patriotism is more like an appreciation for your country.
All right, so let's pick up with one of your first thread you were talking about for citizenship. So do you guys, do all of you believe that citizenship and good character go hand in hand, or are those separate issues, do you think?
I think they go hand in hand because with good character, you have a good persona for yourself, and citizenship kind of adds on to that based on how people perceive you and your personality.
Anything to add?
Well, I mean, there's people who can neglect their citizenship. For example, maybe you don't want to go to jury duty. Maybe that doesn't mean that you're a bad person, though. I think that they're separate, definitely, because you can also have, things that you know that you need to do, and then things that you believe that you want to do, patriotism, things that you are passionate about. And they're different, but they're still, a representation of who you are, but one's kind of more necessary than your beliefs.
I agree with Ava. I think you can be a good person, have good character without being a good citizen. Because character is more like morals and beliefs. And a lot of the times when you're a citizen, like if you're a natural born citizen, like you didn't choose to be in that country. So you could be a bad citizen you could be bad in the sense of citizenship, as in you don't do your civic duties to that country, but you can still be a good person, like give to charity, be kind to your neighbors, stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree with them. I think that there's a difference between the two. Like, you gotta separate that, because you can be a good person and not be a great citizen. And like Eric was talking about morals, like taking your morals into perspective. Like, if you don't think that like morally you want to do something that's considered good for being a citizen, then you could still be a good person in your own eyes or in other people's eyes.
All right, so let's talk about one of the most important jobs of being a citizen, voting. You are all sitting around this table because citizens of Woodland have selected to vote you here. So, voting, showing up to vote, civic responsibility. Is this something that good citizens ought to be required to do? Where does this fit beyond amongst the pantheon of citizenships and powers and persuasions that come with it?
Should they be required is the question?
Should they be required?
Or
Can you be a good person and a bad citizen and vote or not vote? Or I'm intrigued with some of the directions you guys are going with this.
I think you have to vote to be a good citizen. I think there are some things that come along with citizenship that you have to do. Voting's not required by law, but I think if you don't vote, then you're not being the best citizen you can be, because the whole thing about democracy is it's the rule by choice of the people, and if as the people you're not telling you're not giving your choice, you're not giving your opinion, then it's kind of hard to rule by choice if you don't have everyone's choice.
Going off of what Eric said, I think there's a caveat to that I think everybody should vote, but they should be an educated voter. Like, they should do the research on the candidates, weigh the options, because they are ultimately going to be affected by whoever is chosen in the end. And so it's doing a disservice to their community by not properly informing themselves about the candidates and choosing who they see best fit.
Yeah, I agree with Emily and Eric. I think a big issue that we're facing is people are just voting because that's the party that they're associated with, and they don't actually know the electees' like beliefs and what they want to do. But I agree that like you should vote, because like Eric was talking about democracy, like that's the voice of the people. You know, if you want your country to be a certain way, you should stand up for what you believe in, and whether you believe that like an independent is your best fit, or you believe like a different party that's not Republican or Democrat, you should still be voting, because that's you trying to see what you want for the country. And, you know, by not voting, being like, oh, well, Republican and Democrat don't fit my beliefs, you're just standing by and not doing anything for what you believe in. You know, it's not, as student government would say, democracy is not a spectator sport. You know, like, if you're not going to vote and stand up for what you believe in, then, I don't know, I personally don't really think you should be like, oh, this stinks.
I agree with Alyssa. There's a lot of things to influence your vote. For example, like with social media nowadays, we can't really prove to be good citizens because there's so many things influencing us and our decisions, not basing it off of our morals and beliefs of who we want to vote for.
I think that at the end of the day, it's a moral obligation to vote, because simply everyone has their own political ideas and beliefs, regardless of whether or not you're public about them. But it comes down to the fact that if you don't vote, you're not doing anything to support yourself and support what's going on in your own head. And if you have the power to do that, then why not put it to use?
I did an internship with a nonprofit called Citizen Discourse that it wasn't actually, you did a video for them. I asked you to submit a piece, Eric.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And their whole focus is like making a more just, compassionate world. They're not like affiliated with any political party, but it was during the time of the 2020 elections. Got myself a vote sweatshirt, and it was like I was in charge of the social media, and part of the internship, I had to stay well informed with what was going on. And I think the political climate, it seems so like polarizing and dividing that you feel like you're almost pushed to believe a certain way. Oh, if you're a Democrat, you have to vote for this candidate. Like you're betraying your party if you vote for somebody else. But I think that's not the case. Yeah.
So you are the youth, you are the future, you are also aspiring politicians right now in high school. So the question, I guess, for all of you then is how do we fix this? How do we address this? Places like Australia give out free hot dogs if you show up and vote. Then you have countries in Europe where you're mandated by law and required to vote. So some of the solutions that have been put out there are lowering the voting age. Should 16-year-olds be voting? Should we change and go rather from first past the post to a ranked choice voting system? So what are your thoughts on how do we get a more educated citizenship that's going to turn out in greater droves to vote?
I think it's going to be really difficult to get people to stay educated on politics, especially like presidential elections, because like we were talking about before, people don't do the research. And even if it's required by law, I feel like people aren't going to sit down and read what each candidate like preaches, because they just see their party and they're like, yep, vote. I think, obviously, I don't know how likely this is, but if you took away the parties, like if you just put what a candidate believes in and what they want, then I think that would force people to stay up to date and be educated, and they would have to know what each person wants instead of just seeing blue or red and checking off the box.
How about the rest of you?
I think having educated voters is really important. And at the same time, I agree that it doesn't make the most sense to pick your to pick who you vote for based solely off of party. But if that's how you make your decision, then that's how you make your decision. It's a hard thing to change totally. I think there are ways to make it better, to improve it. I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. Alyssa's idea, that makes sense to me. Stuff like that, incentivizing it, like Australia, free hot dogs.
Yeah. So you go to Australia, you stand in line, and you get a free hot dog on a piece of white bread.
That sounds like a win to me.
Now, is it Australia or New Zealand that has the fine if you don't?
I believe it's both countries, but I have to double check that.
Okay.
Many countries around the world, you pay a reverse poll tax of if I don't show up and vote, I have to pay, or it is somehow a punishment for me not exercising this right.
Right.
Now, for me, I mean, I don't think requiring people to show up and to do something isn't going to solve the problem of not being educated.
Right.
I mean, I will go and stand in line for a hot dog, and all I have to do is vote, and they will give me free food. Yes, I still do appreciate me and my free food. Am I going to do more research knowing that I'm also getting free food? Probably not.
Right.
So,
and I think everyone should vote. I think everyone should. It's a right you have. You should exercise it. But at the same time, not voting is a choice. Not exercising the right is also a right you have. So it's a difficult situation.
And a couple of you brought up knowing more and being more aware. Now, one of the things the state of Connecticut's done is mandated the civics course. Do you feel that course is giving you more of an opportunity? Those of you who've taken, how many of you have taken it? 3 of you so far. You haven't taken it yet. 2. To get a better sense of how the system works and why you need to vote or why you should vote. The civics class itself, once you were done with that.
do you feel more educated?
Oh, well, I'm in it right now.
So you're only 3 days in.
Like,
so yeah.
I'm like 4 classes or something like that.
He is exceptionally educated in 4 days.
I feel student government has already taught me the preliminary information, and I also took U.S. History 1 and 2 before I took civics, and the stuff we learned in that class, I either knew from my parents or I knew from previous classes or clubs.
All right.
Oh, okay. So I'm actually really excited to take the course because politics has always been interesting to me, but I kind of found it's not always easy to do research on things that you want to find, especially because most people nowadays go to online websites compared to like books or anything like that. And you find that everything is really one-sided. If you go to a source and they're Republican, they're going to talk about that. If you go to a source that's Democratic, they're going to talk about that. And I feel like this class is going to be more neutral and is really going to give you like a simple overview that's really just going to describe everything. And I think that's really going to help like our younger generations understand more as opposed to getting their political information from the media.
All right, so one of the other words that comes up about citizenship oftentimes, we've talked about voting, we've talked about morals, can you be a good person, is service. Now, service and citizenship are typically linked to the idea that through service to the community, whether it be in elected offices or just being a good member of the community, equates to good citizenship. Are we yay, nay?
No, I agree. Because like over the summer, I was incredibly bored with myself, and I'm like, why don't I give back to my community? And over the summer, I did 205 community service hours on my own, finding my own transportation. And I feel like I really gave back by, for example, taking care of other people's kids, or even just like helping out at the local police department so they didn't have so much of a burden on their shoulders when they would be doing their work to protect our community.
Very good, very good.
I think it's great to do community service, but I think if you can't, because, you know, some people are working hard enough to stay afloat. You know, like there's families who have to work like long hours of the day and they come home and they take care of kids and they're just trying to get by. And if you can't do that, and it goes the same with voting, I was going to mention this before, requiring like, I'm not saying like you were asking if we should require service, but like requiring voting, that sort of thing, for people who are busy nonstop just trying to stay alive, I think it's really difficult for them to be like, oh, I have to go vote today or else I'm going to have to pay more money because I'm trying to stay afloat. You know, I can't afford that. I can't afford to take time off. That sort of thing. Like doing service, I think is good if you are able to. If you can't, I don't think it should be like a moral, oh, you are a bad citizen because you couldn't do it, especially to these people who are just trying to get by, especially in, you know, the levels of poverty we have right now in America, particularly.
I also think service is highly integrated with citizenship. For instance, we talk about taxes, and businesses get taxes exempt if they make donations to charity. And that's just one example of how citizenship is kind of intertwined with service.
Very.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, you good?
I was just going to say something because I thought you were waiting for me to say something.
I was. So.
I was just going to agree with Alyssa. Service is good. It's always good. There's no bad community service. But if you don't have the means or the time, then it doesn't make any sense to put yourself in a worse position.
But remember, like one of the things we have to keep in mind with service is it doesn't have to be a grandiose thing. You're walking down,
Right.
even here in the building, you're walking down, you see a bottle over on the side, just picking it up. That's a form of service.
Right.
You know, it doesn't take you any longer if you're running out to your bus and you just see a piece of paper on the ground to grab it and to throw it out. You didn't have to pause. You didn't have to go get a blue form and fill it out and say that I did exactly 1 minute of community service, picking up a piece of paper and throwing it out. And you're absolutely right. I mean, for the millions of people who are working multiple jobs, who are working long hours, where it is physically impossible for them to do some of these grander service projects, doing something simple at following the speed limit, following the traffic laws, picking up something, reporting something, being a service to your community that way. So one of the things I wanted to end our first podcast with is what are some of the things in our community here at Woodland that we could do to improve? Or what are some of the needs or possible improvements at the community of Woodland that you would like to see? Something nice and simple to end this one.
Does it have to be like student driven, like they could do it, or is it like Board of Ed, this would be nice?
That just as a member of the community.
As a member of the community, I think a good act of service would be to fix a lot of the issues we have in the building, such as, like, I know the girls' bathroom has a lot of issues with the toilets overflowing, for example, and I've seen pages where students take photos of water damage on the ceilings, and that's just not a good look for Woodland. And I just think if they took the time to, look at Woodland and be like, here's what's wrong. Maybe we should fix that so our students can feel better and, more comfortable in this like homey environment where, they'll want to come to every day.
I think that being a good citizen means like giving back to your community, as we said before. And I think kindness is one of the things you have to work on here. Not saying that all the students are unkind, but we just need to work on manners and things like that. Like, you should see some of the disrespect that the students here give their teachers, and these teachers are coming here every day to just want to like pursue their passion and make others learn. But we're not giving the same respect to them as they are giving to us. We need to treat others with respect, like Mr. Ogren says all the time.
I think as a whole, service-wise, outside of the school requirement of service, a lot of people go past that requirement. And like you said, even the little stuff like picking up trash, things like that, I see people do stuff like that all the time. Not looking for any sort of recognition, just doing it. And so I don't think there's like huge strides in trying to get people to do service that need to be made here at Woodland. Just, I don't know, pretty much keep doing what you're doing. You could always be nicer. You could always, school could always be a little cleaner, I guess. But I think as a whole, we're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, I agree with Eric.
It's, how it's always easier to point out the negatives?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's what we do as humans. Our brain always drives to the negatives rather than the positives.
yeah. And it's just, I think of all these issues that I want to help solve, but it's like, it becomes, what's the word? Debilitating, thinking about all the things and thinking of your responsibility, especially as a school leader, of your role in trying to help solve that. And I have a nice list in my head, but it's, I don't think we have enough time for that.
There's a whole thing going on.
You have
All right, so thank you for being here for our first discussion and about citizenship. And on this last note, as we take off, let's think about something that you can say that you've done to show your representation as being a good citizen. What have you done around the building yourself? You've identified what it is to be a good citizen. What's something we can see that you've done to be a good citizen yourself? Maddie, we'll start with you.
I don't think I necessarily did it when I was president, but I still think it's a good expectation to hold or just a good rule to follow. One day I was outside for my photography class and I noticed there was this pair of earbuds dropped near a car, and I just simply returned it without even thinking about it to the office. And I think a month later I got a Copying Excellent award just for doing something that I didn't even think of doing. It was like part of something you just do as a human. You just be kind.
Excellent.
If it was your earbuds, you would have wanted them back. So,
Ava?
Okay, so I've invited our class to individual class meetings that we have, simply because I think that it's important to get everyone involved. I think that's my duty as a citizen, to help other people to be good citizens. So I think the invitation helped them because the people who came to the meeting contributed and they helped our class, and it was really beneficial.
Excellent. Alyssa?
I've been making an effort recently to pick up the paper towels that are left on the floor in the bathroom because they're just there all the time. So I've been picking them up and throwing them out whenever I'm in the bathroom.
Great. Eric?
Whenever there's a large group of people walking out of wherever it is, the caf, out of school, into school, whatever, I usually hold doors in or out of the office, just anything like that, classrooms. I usually hold the door just because it's just people will just walk through, get hit by the door, or let it hit someone behind them, and I see no reason for that. 5 minutes is enough time to get anywhere in the building, so what's 10 seconds holding the door?
Excellent. Emily?
I drafted a resolution to modify our health curriculum to make it include comprehensive sex ed, intuitive eating, and to have a heavier emphasis on mental health. Unfortunately, it got rejected by the Board of Ed, but I did research and I met with professionals, and I really tried, really Yeah.
And I think sometimes what it is, it sounds like everybody here, you were trying. You're putting your best foot forward, showing your involvement, leading by example. Well, thank you for joining us for our inaugural Presidential Party podcast. For Eric, Ava, Maddie, Alyssa, Emily, he's Tomlin. I'm Amato. Thanks for listening, Woodland.